G'day community and welcome to the Jock, Reynolds, Supercoach podcast. I am Lekdog, it is round 20 and I am joined by Damo. How are you, Damo?
I'm good, Lek, I'm good. How have you been over there in lockdown?
Oh, you know, everyone's in lockdown these days. It's just a way of being. In fact, it honestly makes almost no difference to my life. Except I can't play board games with people or go and play disc golf. So other than that, life's good, Damo. How about you?
Yeah, life's good here. I mean, we were in lockdown just a little over a month ago now, so we had our turn and then it was yours because of the same reason, really.
Yeah, no, it sucks, but hopefully people out there are enjoying the podcast as the Supercoach season starts to ramp down. It's interesting, Damo. We're talking about it before the pod. It's for people playing for rank, they're probably too good to be listening to the podcast. And for people playing for leagues, they've probably already burnt all their trades. So this podcast is just kind of, we're going to talk about some stuff. Damo.
Just some stuff.
You know, Damo, you suggested maybe we do a which footy players are which Star Wars characters episode, but I think that needs way more research than what we've put in for this week. So we'll shelve that. If you've got suggestions, let us know. We'd love some comparisons because that is prime time content, Damo.
It just came to me naturally. No, not really. We were talking about Star Wars before we started recording, and just fell into the mind, really.
I can't wait to compare Daniel Rich to Han Solo, but that's not what we're doing this week, Damo. We're going to start off with the big news of the round heading into round 20, and that's that we've got a fixture. Touch all of the wood. And as a complete meme to everyone in the AFL world, the AFL have put St Kilda v Carlton on Friday night, which is hilarious. And that's going to be a very funny game. Jack Steele and Sam Walsh, though, so there is a couple of players to keep an eye on. Bulldogs v Adelaide on Saturday in the early game. North v Geelong after that. Gold Coast v Melbourne on Saturday. Arvo, Collingwood v West Coast at 4:15 on Saturday. It's going to be a bloody footy frenzy on Saturday. Essendon v Sydney at the Gabba on Saturday night, which is a really good home venue for Essendon, I find, Damo.
Yeah, I think Essendon have actually a good record at the Gabba. Regardless, I know you're trying to joke around, but I actually think they've got a good record at the Gabba, if I remember correctly. You'd assume the Gold Coast Melbourne game is at Metricon Stadium, even though it's to be confirmed. And you probably wouldn't rule out the Giants Power game being in Canberra.
Well, yeah, there's Hawthorn v Brisbane on Sunday at Launceston, and then GWS v Port Adelaide, as you said, yet to be confirmed. But I like your thinking. Then the final game on Friday night will be Fremantle v Richmond at 5:10 AEST or I think it's, or is it daylight savings? Who knows? Who cares? Damo, I love these staggered games. It makes footy way more enjoyable when the overlap is minimal.
Oh yeah, I mean, I think there's only 2 games that completely overlap with each other pretty much entirely.
That's how footy should be played. Let's talk Supercoach before we get into the main topic. Shout out to Telebeats for the intro music. Shout out to everyone on the website for putting up the content. The Panic Room was brilliant. Dill covered for Foz this week. We've got Around the Grounds with Baron Von Crow. We've got the cheat sheet with Statty Manny. Life's good. Content's rolling. We're approaching the end of the season, so we're going to talk about this week's trades, and then we're going to go into surprise packets of the year, Damo. All right. The first thing we need to address is who the players, if you've got trades, need to trade out. And Damo, Dustin Martin, still owned by 34% of the team. He's out for the season. Tom Highmore has a broken hand. He's still owned by 30%. Scotty Pendlebury, if some people jumped on him as a cheapie option in the midfield, he broke his leg, which I think the last time he had an injury this series was literally a decade ago.
Yeah, I think and it was a broken leg again.
Yeah, the same. I don't know if it was the same leg, but same break. So he's out for the year, and then your man is out for the year as well, Damo.
Yeah, Nav 5 had surgery in Melbourne today, out for the season.
Michael Walters also maybe out for the season. We've got injuries galore. I know Zach Williams, 5% of coaches own him. He's probably out for the season. Matt Flynn is done. Everybody's falling down, Damo, but let's not despair. There are some players we can look at bringing in. We'll start off with the players on the bubble, and then we'll look at some primo options. Sam Durham, he's probably the pick on everyone's lips. 73 on the weekend, $102,400 defensive mid swing. I've bought him into my team. He's got a break even of negative 61, Damo. Do you like this kid?
He looks very, very good. The only thing that would stop me from picking him is that most people's defenses and midfields are mostly completed. So unless you need a warm body on your field in those positions, he's probably not someone that you would go for. Matthew Parker is on the bubble at 141k. He scored 81 against Geelong on the weekend, and he seems to be playing that Dustin Martin role in sort of tag team with Shea Bolton. So he's also another good option, and he's in his home state this weekend and could turn on a show for his family.
Yeah, so he scored 81 on the weekend. His break even is negative 4,400 or 41,000 mid forward swing. I think forward line is probably where people need the most depth. Though in my case, I did a lot of swing sets on the weekend with my final trade, and now I have no one playing on the bench in defense. So, touch wood, everything is fine. Other players to look at: Connor West. He had his second game, scored a $5,502,000 mid. Break even is negative 65. He's a West Coast player. Are we interested in him at all?
I don't know about his job security. Adam Simpson will back in the kids until they have a bad loss, and then will revert back to the players he knows well. You know, the Shoeys, the Hutchings. Although, in fairness, Hutchings played his first game in 2 years on the weekend. So
First
I
game
don't.
of AFL for sure. I think at 157,000, he's a bit too expensive mid forward. He only scored 36 on the weekend. But if you wanted a job security guy, I feel like he's probably going to stick around in that team.
Yeah, there's a good chance, and they without him, they have let midfielders off the leash a bit. So he really lets them. He really gets them. Uh, he he keeps their midfield accountable. Really, the opposition midfield accountable.
Yeah, and they've been. I mean, I feel like I haven't done any analysis into this because why start now? But I feel like they've been giving up points in the midfield this year. It'll be interesting to see if Hutchings in that side makes a difference, and you've got to think about your captaincy selections a little bit more.
Well, yeah, I mean, everyone sort of considered Jack Steele as a really, really good captain's option on the weekend, but then when Hutchings was named, there were lots of people that changed their mind, and he only just scraped into 109. So
A couple of other rookies, just noting Anton Tohill debuted for Collingwood, $123,900, scored 39. Jack Ginnivan played his first game, forward mid $102,000 rookie, 34 points. A couple options there, but the really interesting one for me, Damo, Josh Shackey, $214,000. I know this may come across as crazy. He scored 91 points. He's 200,000. Let's say you had no cash and you're scraping, you need an F7, maybe an F6. He was like a number 2 pick once upon a time. Is he someone that we can consider?
you'd consider him for maybe 3 seconds, and then you'd stop.
Yeah, I think you might be right. Maybe worth grabbing on a draft waiver wire, but certainly not for classic. Let's look at some. I'm going to say primos in inverted commas, Damo, but let's try and find some players that people can trade in.
Well, Fife's around 455k, and Pendlebury's pretty much the same price. Um, if you've not got a lot of cash in the bank, you could look at maybe a Hugh McCluggage. He's averaging just under 102 for the season. He's had some lean patches, but he's probably one of the best delivery people in the forward 50. And with Hipwood out, they've been using him a lot more across that half forward line to bring the ball in for scoring opportunities. So that's 121 and 108 the last 2 weeks, and then a 91 versus St Kilda in the week before those two. So he's having a good. Uh, he's returning to form because he did have a little while there where his role was a little bit uncertain.
Yeah, I think he's a really good option. We'll talk about him a little bit later. I imagine he's the 27th ranked Supercoach player this year, so he's a good option. I think if you've got a little bit more cash, I think you need about 17k, you can jump up to Cam Guthrie, who scored 120 on the weekend. He's averaging 111 for the year, and he's the 32nd overall ranked player this year, and he did miss a few games and then had a really poor 40 a few weeks ago. But like the fact that this guy's barely over 500k and averaging 110 is really, really impressive.
And then you've got the likes of your Travis Boakes and your Josh Kellys, who are not too far into the 500Ks there. And then you got Andy Brayshaw, who's going to have a lot more responsibility now that Nat Fife's not in that team. Then you got Tom Liberatore. Can I throw another player at you? Just
hit me.
Now he's not going to score 105, 110 every single week, but he's going to have games where he goes massive. Ben Keys.
Benny Keys. Tell me about him. What's his price? What are we looking at?
So he's 506k on the dot, averaging just under 101 for the season. He's only scored, 18 points less than Hugh McCluggage for the season so far.
He is a little bit more expensive. That might be the only thing that turns people away.
He's only gone below 80 twice this season.
But he's had a very, very impressive season. I don't mind him as a pod. I certainly don't mind him as a pod. I know draft players out there who picked him up the start of the year are very, very happy with him. Hey, I just wanted to shout this out. Marcus Bontempelli, the second ranked player, his price is only $609,000. He scored a 136 on the weekend. He's got a 5-round average of 116, but he's pretty cheap. I know a lot of people have him. His break even's 132. He's actually might get a little bit cheaper. Comes up against your man Ben Keys this week. So if you've got the money, he's certainly an option to consider.
And then you've got David Mundy at 450k there as well.
Yeah, his recent form worries me a little, but do we think Nat Fife out helps him?
I don't think Nat Fife out hurts him. Whether it helps him, though, I don't know.
Well, let's swing things back, Damo. We're just rushing through because I want to get to the meat of this podcast. Lockie Whitfield, if you don't have him, or if you did what I did and you traded him out a couple of weeks ago when he got that concussion, he's got 146 on the weekend. His price has dropped to $477,600, averaging 95 on the year. And he's got a decent little run home. Port Geelong, I don't think they're going to tag him or anything like that. Then Richmond and Carlton, and he should go big against those two sides to finish out the season. So I really like him as a defensive option. And then I'll throw this one at you too, Damo. I'm just whisking through here. Is Steele Sidebottom a good selection? He's been bad most of the year, but he's sub 400,000 and he scored 109 on the weekend.
With Scott Pendlebury out, I don't mind it.
Is it just a fluke that Scott Pendlebury, broke his leg early in that match and then Sidebum stepped up to score 109 from 26 disposals? Is it just a coincidence?
No, when Pendlebury went out, they needed someone with, who could who was a good at football to play in the midfield, and still side bottom fit that bill.
Yeah, I don't
Because
mind him.
the sub in that game was Mason Cox, and Mason Cox wasn't going to become a ruck rover, was he? He was either going to be a ruck or a forward, wasn't so? And they were already playing Darcy Cameron and Brody Grundy.
Yeah, I quite like him as a bit of a pod selection this week. I think Damo, like everyone else, we're going to suggest they're out and out guns. You know what you want. You know what you're going to get from them. Is there anyone jumping out at you that people might not have thought of?
Jai Simpkin.
Ooh, I like that. I really like Jai Simpkin. I actually thought he was much older than he is. Talk to me about Jai Simpkin.
So it's 539K. So it's a bit expensive, especially if you're needing to go up from one of those $455,000 guys that got injured. But he's ever since Ben Cunnington has come back into the team, back into that midfield and playing full game time, he's only gone below 99 once. So since what's that? Since round 11,
Thereabouts.
only gone below 99 once, and that was a 73.
Yeah, that's pretty damn impressive. Taron Thomas also it will miss this week. They announced that today, North Melbourne, that he's got a delayed concussion. So even more room to run around in that midfield for Jai Simpkin. I don't mind that shout, Damo.
Yeah, I mean, I think my pick of the bunch is probably Hugh McCluggage. That was where that's what I drew myself to draw Hugh McCluggage as soon as I opened the page. So I think for me, he's the best option in my eyes. Who's the best option in your eyes?
Best option or option I'm going to talk about? I just want to shout out that Josh P. Kennedy of the Sydney Swans turned the clock back on the weekend. I'm not saying pick him, $486,900, but he did score 154 points, backed it up from a 109 the week before. Not saying pick him, just saying he did it. My best midfield replacement around that price. If I only had one trade, if I couldn't get to Cam Guthrie, because I do think it's Cam Guthrie, it's really tough, Damo. I think it'd be Hugh McCluggage. I think he's just been really consistent this year. And you did mention he's had a couple of lean patches, but overall, as a whole, his year has been very, very good.
Yeah, I think he's someone that we could probably look at for next year as well. I think he's someone who might be on the periphery that we're not really thinking about right now. But if anything, this year's taught us that the names on the periphery are the ones that we should be thinking about more than the big names that we were so attached to at the beginning of the year.
Yeah, there's certainly there's some exceptions to that. There's some out and out guns that were always going to probably be a success when you pick them, McRae, Oliver, etc. But people who were obsessed like myself with Travis Boak all preseason because there was just no way he wasn't going to back up the season that he had last year. Well, he didn't quite back it up. If I'd looked more less narrow-mindedly, maybe someone like Hugh McCluggage ends up in my team and I get the 27th overall score instead of the 31st. And it's not a huge jump between them in total points for the year, but it is a difference. And it probably saved me a lot of cash at the start of the year too.
Yeah, for sure. Now, you already teased that we were going to talk about the surprises for this season. Should we just move into that now?
Yeah, I think we should. I think line by line, where do you want to start?
Let's start with overall, just overall. So every position stacked up against each other.
Oh boy, I need to sort my filters. Okay, Damo, let's talk surprises of the season so far. Yes, there's still 4 weeks to go, so these could change slightly, but let's talk surprises. And the first one for me is probably a negative surprise. I've mentioned him the last 2 weeks. It's Max Gawn. Averaging 120.5 for the year, really, really good, but I'm surprised he's not the number 1 or 2 ranked player. He's fifth. He's fifth overall for total points. Is that a surprise to you?
I'm not surprised to see him in the top 5. I'm probably more surprised to see where he is in the top 5. But the reliance on him has lessened with Luke Jackson coming up. So he's behind the 4 big midfielders for the year. in McRae, Bontempelli, Steele, and Oliver. No surprise that he's in the top five. Just probably where he is in the top five.
Yeah, he is getting old as well. I think he's 30 now, so maybe that's got something to do with maybe the fact that Melbourne are better has meant they haven't had to rely on him as much. There's a lot of things, but in that top five, McRae, Bont, Steele, Oliver, Gawn, I would not have been surprised if you told me that those five players were going to be in the top five at this point in the season. Jack Steele, especially, I'm kicking myself. I didn't grab him before the bye. He actually scored too high that week, and I couldn't afford him. So I'm still upset at you about that, Jack Steele. But that top five, we're pretty much expected that demo.
Yeah, that top five was pretty much what I expected. What I didn't expect was Rory Laird and Took Miller to be at 9th and 10th.
No, that. I mean, Rory Laird had signs last year that when they moved him to the midfield, that he could be a beast Supercoach scorer. He could become a Supercoach pig, but I kind of didn't believe that it'd keep happening. Like I thought he'd come out on fire and then drop off because teams would work him out.
I picked him as a defender, and that's where he's currently is in my team. But I have used him in my midfield this year, and he hasn't looked out of place with the way he scores. Would you select Rory Laird next year as a mid only, which is what he's likely to be?
I think we have to definitely consider him. I mean, it's all about that price. He's averaging 115.7 at the moment, so probably be about what he's priced now, 610-ish, 615K. He's 624 at the moment. But look, he's going at 1.9 points per minute. He's almost going at 2 points per minute, which is crazy,
Yeah.
Damo.
And I mean, he's not that glamorous, sexy pick that people try and go for. But if he's going to get points on the board, he might be someone that we have to seriously consider.
Yeah, I'll certainly be considering him, Damo. He's a little bit older though than some of the other midfielders I'll be looking at. I'll say that. Took Miller, you mentioned him. Surprising.
I wouldn't have picked him at the beginning of the year, and I probably wouldn't have bought the hype if I had trades to bring him in earlier earlier in the season too. Like I've seen him have this run of form before, but for him to be able to keep it up this year has been unprecedented.
The super impressive thing about him in the top 20, Damo, there's, in fact, let's stretch that out. In the top 25 Supercoach scorers, in fact, let's stretch that out. In the top 28 Supercoach scorers, there's only 4 players who have played less than 18 games. Dane Zorko, Brodie Grundy, Sean Darcy, your man, and then Took Miller. And he's 10th, having played 1 game less than the 9 guys above him. It's just super impressive, averaging 122 on the year. Certainly not someone that I would have expected. Obviously, those who listen know that if I just listened to my partner, Cass, I would have known that he was going to be a top 10 scorer and I would have picked him because that's what she did and that's what she said.
Well, you mentioned Sean Darcy. He's 12th ranked Supercoach player, and he's also played 17 games, so he's also missed a game.
It's bloody impressive.
Well, he had 3 weeks in a row where he scored 180, and then 150 or something. So he's got the capacity to just go off.
Yeah, well, he's going to be expensive next year, you'd think. If
he's going to be about 650K to start next year.
And that's assuming he doesn't go beast mode for these next 4 games and completely blow that average out of the water. But it's going to be an interesting debate next year, isn't it?
Oh yeah, I think I'm going to start him. I think that's my bias getting in the way though, because he's a Dockers player. But yeah, I think I'll have a hard time deciding if it's Grundy, Gawn, or even someone else completely that I partner him up with. But at this stage, he's well and truly locked into my Supercoach side for 2022.
Well, let's quickly just tick off this current top 10. Sam Walsh, I'm not surprised by that. I had him pegged as a top 10 finisher this year. Darcy Parish, I did not have pegged as a top 10 finisher this year, and still 4 weeks to go. But at this stage, he's a top 10 finisher.
I won't be starting him next year. I think this year's going to be a flash in the pan.
Ooh,
he
can't patch.
He can't handle a tag.
No, he's probably never had to before either. It'd be new territory to him. And Sam Walsh has been tagged a few times this year. He's still able to get those sort of 24, 25 touches. He's way less effective. Darcy Parish showed on the weekend that he really, really struggled just to find the ball, let alone use it well. And then Jared Lyons at 8. I don't think that's surprising to anyone playing the game of Supercoach. Let's scroll down, Damo. Is there any names that jump out to you, positions 11 through 20?
Not really. I mean, I wouldn't have said Jack Zeeble at the beginning of the year, but I can't really fault his year so far. And we saw in his first 3 weeks, we sort of knew what we were going to get from him. So he's not all that surprising. Maybe Brody Grundy not being as high up in the top 20 has surprised me, but he hasn't been the same Brody Grundy that we've grown to love this year.
Worth noting, he's played 2 less games than everyone else in this top 20 as well. So 16 games, missed a couple with that neck injury. So that probably stings against him, but still averaging 120 on the year.
Still having a very good year.
You didn't mention my boy at 18. You didn't mention him.
But that's not a surprise.
No, it's not a surprise to the listeners of the Jock Reynolds podcast that Daniel Rich is the 18th ranked scorer this year. What a beast. He can kick long. That's a good thing in Supercoach for some reason. All right, let's go down. 21 through 30, Damo. Any major surprises here? We've touched on 2 already in Ben Keys and Hugh McCluggage. Do any of these other names surprise you?
Callum Mills, probably. I think his move to the midfield, no one really bought it at the beginning of the year until it happened.
I certainly didn't believe it was going to happen, and that's not on him. That's on Horst Longmire because he's a liar. Is that slander?
A little bit.
I didn't have David Mundy in the top 30, Damo. I ain't going to lie, and I don't think he's going to end up in the top 30, but I didn't have him there.
No, he's beating Travis Boak at the moment, though.
Yeah, that's by 5 points. He's averaging under 100, and he's in the top 30. My brain can't actually comprehend how that works, but that's the maths, baby.
We've covered the top 30. Should we go by position?
All right, we'll start in defense. Damo, I can tell you one name in that top 10 that kind of surprises me. One of my favorite players in the NFL, but Jordan Dawson, $542,800, averaging 98 for the year, has over the last few weeks has continually pushed that rank up, and 111 on the weekend. He's now 7th overall, ahead of Jaden Short and Jordan Ridley.
Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me if he pushes himself into the top 5 before the end of the year, although he is a little bit behind. He might push his teammate Callum Mills down, but I think he's a good chance to be one of the top ranked defenders at the end of the season. We'll move on from him fairly quickly because the name that stood out to me as soon as I opened up this was your boy Jacob Wiedering at number 10.
Yeah, it's a very, very surprising one. So obviously, Carlton fans, we watch him play every week. We think he's an absolute jet, one of the best defenders in the league, and he's not helped by the Carlton game plan, but he does heroics every week. But turning that into Supercoach scoring, and it's a weird year for Supercoach scoring, but to get to 10th with an average of 93.3, it's promising, but I don't think he's ever going to have that pure freedom where you can just peel off and intercept constantly. So I'm not sure that this will happen again, but it is nice to see that it's happening at the moment.
And I would say Harris Andrews is surprising, but he's in the top 20 almost every year.
Yeah, he just finds a way, doesn't he?
He's unassuming. Like, you don't think he's going to score that well by the way that he plays, but then you'll look at the table after a game and you'll be like, oh wow, I didn't actually think he intercepted that much or had that many disposals or marked the ball that many times, but he does all those 3 things and also manages to mostly hold key forwards to goalless or next to no score impact at all.
Yeah. Similar vein, Jake Lever. He's 14th. He's averaged 92 for the year, 114 on the weekend. And another guy you could have got at 400K at the start of the year. It's just really these taller defenders float around this 10 to 15 mark.
And if you move your eye down further, 18th, 19th, 20th, and 21st, and 22nd, Brody Smith, Adam Sard, Stephen May, Will Powell, and Aaliyah.
They are certainly some names.
I wouldn't have thought those guys would have been anywhere near the top 20.
Stephen May, I would have. Adam Sard, I kind of thought he was maybe average 85. What's he averaging? 87. There you go. Yeah, no, they are surprising. Will Power, very surprising. And some people might be surprised by this, that Luke Ryan fell outside of that top 20. He's 23rd.
Yeah, he's had, I think, having two key defenders in the side this year. Because remember last year, it was basically him and Brendan Cox for the whole year after Logue, Pierce, Hamling, everyone dropped dead. So he hasn't had that reliance on him that has been the case, that was the case last year, and even he had a different role under Ross Lyon in the year before that. So I think it's not a surprise to see him not in that top echelon of players, but he's still averaging 101.
Yeah, that's pretty decent return. He missed a couple of games as well. Damo, let's, I reckon, swing it into the forward line because this is just a mess of names.
We're going forever. It's number 6, Nick Hind. Number 8,
4.
Aaron Hall.
Number 4, Bailey Dale.
Oh,
Number
yeah.
1, Jack Zeeble. I wasn't expecting Jack Zeeble to be number 1 scoring forward by a lot this year.
Number 9, Isaac Smith.
Yeah, let's talk about Isaac Smith. Old dude gets bought over from Hawthorn to Geelong. Everyone thinks he's going to have being a 70 to 80 scorer, and he was for most of the year. Has found some form since about round 11. Since then, he hasn't dropped below an 88 and has had a few tons. Just kept on keeping on, and one of these guys that we love to talk about on the podcast that just played every game, scored enough to get into this top 10, and if you'd started him, you probably would have been pretty happy with the return.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't want to start him. I thought about it multiple times every time someone went down, but because there were people that were going down in the preseason, they were dropping like flies even before the season started, these forwards.
Well, this is his third highest averaging season since 2014 and 2015. Who would have expected him to bounce back in Geelong's team of all teams?
Yeah, I mean, he's still getting a bit of flack from going from the Hawks to the Cats, but he seems to be enjoying the footy there, and the Cats are the informed team at the moment too, so he might be able to add to his medal tally there.
Oh God, I can't deal with that. Let's move down the list because there's a few names here. Jack Bailey, not surprising. Dustin Martin, probably surprising he's that low. Steel side bum we talked about. Tarrant Thomas is surprising. He's now out for the year, so he'll fall out of this. Your boy at number 14. Let's talk about it.
Yeah, it sort of tells you how challenging the forward line has been this year, with Lincoln McCarthy at 14th overall, averaging less than 80 points.
Ahead of Taylor Walker, who averaged 90 for the year, but he missed a couple of games. Ahead of Joe Danaher, ahead of Shea Bolton. Lincoln McCarthy is the 14th ranked forward in 2021.
He hasn't even got an average above 80 in his 3 to 5 round averages. He's someone that you would look at in the that you wouldn't even look at. You'd scroll right past him. You would search McCarthy to get to someone else, and he'd be like the top result, and you'd go for the second player.
Honestly, and it says a lot about the game that if you'd started him at what price was he? 360,000. If you started him at 360k in your forward line, you never would have needed to trade him. You never would have been happy. He's scored above 100, I think, 3 times. But he still would have been better by the time the season's out than if you'd started Dustin Martin. I know people started Tom Atkins, people who started Joe Danaher, who was 100K cheaper. He's going to outscore, let's be honest, and I know injury played a huge factor. He's going to outscore Josh Dunkley. Like, just playing all the games makes such a difference, but we don't think about that in Supercoach terms because he doesn't present upside or value. But if you'd picked him, you'd be better off.
Well, there's another player further down that sort of presents the same sort of thing, and that is Dylan Moore at the Hawks.
Who?
Ranked 23rd.
Don't even know who that is, Damo.
Dylan Moore, Patch loves him. Ask Patch about him. He'll talk your ear off.
He's got 115 in round 19. He's had 3 scores over 100. I couldn't tell you who he is or what he looked like, but he would have been a better starting selection than Toby Green or Isaac Heaney or Aaron Norton or Tom Phillips or Jordan DeGoey. What is this?
Just shows you how difficult the forward line has been this year.
Yeah, it's been really interesting. Like, if you'd had started Tim Membry, you'd be happy. Jack Darling is in the top 20. Oh my goodness. And he's lost 100 grand for the year. I guess that's the downside. But I guess the point of all this, Damo, is that just having a player who plays the games is valuable. I know you're aiming to get a top 8 guy, and that's hard to nail, and it's hard to do when you're looking at the top 8 with guys that we would have never even considered preseason. But my team would have been better with Lincoln McCarthy.
I don't know how you sort of will work this out next year, but would it be worth it maybe trying to select one of these guys to use as a stepping stone late in the year?
Yeah, just like we always talk ourselves out of it because, right, if a guy's 400K, then we want him to have upside, or we want someone who's been injured, like as Jack Zeeble at 200K, right? Or a fully fledged premo, even though if you started someone like Dustin Martin, you've lost 100 grand. If you started Jack Steele, you've lost 200. Steele Sidebottom, you've lost 200 grand. If you started Hawkins, you've lost 90 grand. But maybe just having a guy who's there to score, who will score more than a rookie, maybe that's something.
Yeah, it's something to think about, isn't it? Like, do you go for maybe I don't know who's a player that will play every game that they're fit. Do you go for a Brian Myers? Do you go for a Luke Dahlhaus?
God, no, not Luke Dahlhaus.
Do you go for I don't know?
It's really it's basically.
Do you go for a Charlie Spargo? I don't know. There you go. There's one.
These guys that I would look at on the waiver wire in my draft and go, yeah, I'll bring him in for a week because I know he's going to score 80. But if I take that logic and apply it to classic Supercoach, I'd probably be in a better position, and it really upsets me and shakes me because it's really tough. If I'd started Lincoln McCarthy instead of Dustin Martin, currently I'd be 50 points behind on the whole season from having Dustin Martin, but I wouldn't have had any games where Dustin Martin didn't play, so I would have had cover, so I would have had more points on field than if I had to cover Dustin Martin with a rookie. It's just mind-boggling, Damo.
If you had started Jaden Stevenson, he would have been a better selection than Jarman Impey.
Oh my goodness. Demo, don't do that to me. All right, let's move out of the forward line. It's causing me to have a conniption.
Let's look at the ruck.
Quickly, we'll look at the rucks. Sean Darcy at number 2 overall for total points. I think we're a little bit surprised by that, and particularly in the way he's gone about it and the fact that he's over 700K. Nick Nat, Brody Grundy, and Todd Goldstein ran out the top 5. I don't think that's a surprise. Riley O'Brien's probably the next in line. But then, Tom Hickey.
Tom Hickey. But people had Braden Pruce stuck at R2 for most of the preseason, And the next logical pick, well, not logical pick, but the next pick around that price was Tom Hickey, and no one wanted to touch him.
260 grand he was. And since then, he's averaged 103.4. He's posted 1,655 points. He did have the quickest comeback from I think it was a knee injury where they were like, he's out for 6 weeks. And then he played the next week of all time. But he's been really impressive. And if you'd started him, you'd be in a position where you could have been like, do I even need to upgrade him?
Because he was scoring really well at the beginning of the season as well.
Yeah, I think he's dropped off a little bit as the season's progressed, but started the season 1, 2, 3, 79, 112, 115, 87, 110, 102, 118. Like he just pumped out scores, Damo.
And Mark Pitney has only played 13 games for the season, but he's still ranked as the 13th highest, as the 13th ruckman.
Yeah, well, yes. Rowan Marshall's the 20th ranked ruckman, so Riley Tilthorpe's the 22nd ranked ruckman. So the ruck is probably not somewhere I'm ever going to muck around in. I know a lot of people tried the 3 cheapies to start the year, but Jared Witts is going to play next year. If he's healthy in round 1, he's going to be very, very cheap. I can't see anyone else who's going to be like sort of that sub 200k. Maybe Darcy Fort, if he goes somewhere else, people look at him. Braden Perouse, he's going to be like 150 grand, Damo, 200 grand.
He's going to be 212k.
You've probably just got to start him, don't you?
Well, that's unless he breathes near anything.
Well, yeah, of course, of course. But the rucks, I think, going into next year, it's still going to be one of these top 6 guys that two of these top 6 guys that everyone's locking in. Tim English might be a forward ruck swing, and that'll be very, very interesting if that's the case.
If he's a good chance to be forward ruck swing, and I'm hoping that he is, because that's an easy decision for me.
Yeah, I think having some combination of him, Marshall, Bruce, there'll be some good value to be had in the ruck. Damo, we're running out of time, but let's scroll through the midfielders very, very quickly. We've touched on Parrish. We've touched on Took Miller. Zach Merritt's 11th. Ollie Wines at 12th overall is a bit of a surprise, and he's gotten better and better as each week's gone on.
There's not a lot of surprises in the midfield. We've already talked about Ben Keys, David Mundy. I suppose the next big surprise is Jacob Hopper, but even then, he's too far out of the top 20. He's still probably around where I would have expected him to be anyway, because when I think about it, who's ahead of him and who's behind him, he's probably about right.
Yeah, 26th overall. Paul Seedsman, I probably didn't have in the top 30. Joel Selwood, I probably didn't have in the top 30 given the last couple of years he's had. I think Carl Amon is a very interesting one. He's 31st overall, and he has some games where he accumulates like 50 points in the first quarter and then 30 for the next 3. So if he can add to that game, he'll be an interesting one moving into the future.
And then his teammate Willem Drew at 36.
Who's been quietly just very good this year. 87 over 18 games. He's 36th overall in the midfield.
And I know Azza started him.
Did he really?
Yep.
How cheap was he? Like 300 grand?
Yep.
Wow. I'm a little surprised that, and I know he's had that one injury, but Andrew Gaff is 40th overall, lost 140 grand for the year. I definitely would have had him pegged as higher, and I think I considered starting him as a pod, so I'm glad I didn't.
Well, and Lockie Hunter was one of the top 6 midfielders to start the year as well, based on price. He hasn't come close to his 2020 season.
No, and it'll be interesting to see, because he could be the Darcy Parish could be the Lockie Hunter, as you said earlier, of next year. We've just got to work out which one it's going to be, because there's always someone that drops out.
Yeah, I stand by my Darcy Parish call.
I really hope it's not Sam Walsh. I really hope it's not Sam Walsh.
Depends who Carlton go for at the end of the year, I guess. They seem to have a shopping list.
Yeah, well, that's a different podcast. That's Tradio. We don't need to talk about that. I'll just get upset, Damo. I'll just get upset.
Yeah, I think if you talk about the Dockers as well in that space as well, I'll get upset just the same.
Well, let's not get upset, Damo. Let's enjoy what's left of our Monday night. We'll get this one out to the people listening on Tuesday. So if you are listening, like, subscribe, whatever you rate it, do all that thing. Let people know let us know if you're enjoying the content as we wrap things up, and let us know what you want to hear about over these last few weeks of the Supercoach season before we take probably 1 week's break, and then the preseason will start. It feels like. Damo, thank you for joining me.
Thank you for having me. I sort of asked to be on because I hadn't been on probably since before the buys. So, I thought it was my turn.
No, we love to have you. I need someone else, otherwise Patch just comes on every week and we have to have a fight about Carlton and Essendon.
And we always know who wins that one.
Yeah, me, I edit the podcast. All right, Damo, thank you, mate. It's been a bloody pleasure.
See ya.